You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5777, 2017. This week's Parsha is Parshas Pinchas. And I would actually like to go to the end of the Parsha, which speaks about the concept of the Benos Tzelafchad, the daughters of Tzelafchad. These were 5 women who at the end of the 40 years in the Midbar, in the wilderness, Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in the concepts of Yibum, in the concepts of the Nachla, the concepts of what a person does if someone passes away without any heirs, what happens to his wife, what happens to his inheritance. And the daughters of Tzelafchad said, look, they were 5 women, 5 daughters, no brothers, and ordinarily in Jewish law, so the inheritance goes to the children, to the sons of the man. And we'll see soon what that's about. What is the idea of inheritance? And the Benos Tzelafchad said, we would like to make sure that the spiritual inheritance of our father within the land of Israel doesn't get lost. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't immediately answer them, but instead he turned to Hashem, he turned to God, and he asked God, what is the halacha in such a case? What is the law? And God responded and said, indeed, they're correct. These women are speaking correctly. They do indeed get an inheritance from their father, and therefore, as we find also later in the Torah, the other members of their tribe also said, look, we want to make sure that the inheritance doesn't leave our tribe. We want to make sure it stays within the tribe. And the daughters of Tzelafchad ended up marrying men who were hagunim, appropriate for them. I'd like to share with you some ideas from Reb Chaim Friedlander again this week. And it's just really some mind-blowing thoughts and some of my own conclusions based on what he says. The first thing that he says, he points out, is a few different things. He brings from our Chazal. First thing he brings is a Gemara in Baba Basra on the Scofield Test. Ru'uya haisa Parsha zo, Parsha Nachlos likasiv al yidei Moshe. The whole concept of this Parsha, of what happens if a man doesn't have any sons, goes to his daughters, this should have been something which Moshe initiated the halacha and spoke about and taught. But the daughters of Tzelafchad had a schus. They had a merit, and as a result of that merit, so it was written because of them. It was nis'ayr, it was aroused. The idea came up because of them. This teaches us that when it comes to a schus, when it comes to a merit, when it comes to revealing some spiritual principle, so it happens through someone who is worthy. Now, he continues and says, like we said, it was a schus, it was a merit that it was through them that the Parsha was given over. What was the special schus, says Reb Chaim Friedlander, that allowed them, that enabled them to be able to reveal this amazing concept, that it should be revealed through them? Chazal Amru Od, so Yalkut Shimoni and Pinchas, in our Parsha, the daughters of Tzelafchad are correct. Yafet tavu b'nei Tzelafchad shekach ksuv Parsha zu l'fanei b'moron. Amazing thing. Hashem says this is something correct. They are making a correct claim. They are claiming indeed that they should be the ones to receive the inheritance. This is exactly what it says right here in the heavens. They were machabein to maidas. They lined themselves up precisely. Praiseworthy is the one who Hashem admits that they're correct. The Chazal, our sages, also speak further about their greatness. Tana, this is also there in that Yalkut Shimoni. Tana b'lo Tzelafchad chachmani yasein, darshani yasein. The daughters of Tzelafchad were wise, they were intelligent, and they would darshan. They were able to understand things. They were able to understand depths. They were righteous. Dibru. Amazing thing. Very interesting thing. When did they come and speak? They spoke right here. They spoke at an opportune moment. They waited until the right time. They were wise. Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says, Moses was speaking about, teaching about the concept of yibum. Yibum is the concept that if someone dies without any heirs, so the brother of the person who died marries the wife of his brother, of his dead brother, and then the children that they have are called after the one who died. Shenemar ki yeshu achim yachdav. The verse tells us, when brothers shall sit together, amru loi. So when the daughters of Tzelafchad heard this drasha of Moshe Rabbeinu, when they heard that Moses was speaking about this concept, so they said, Im kiven anu chashuvin, if we are considered like sons, tana lanu nachla kiben, give us a portion, just like a son. Im lav, if we're not considered like sons, if our mother is now considered as if she had no sons and therefore has no spiritual heirs, tisyavim imenu miyad. Tisyavim imenu, I'm sorry. Let our mother do yibum. Let her marry her brother-in-law, and have children, and thereby continue the spiritual legacy of our father Tzelafchad. Immediately, so Moshe Rabbeinu brought their question or their issue in front of God, and indeed, they received the response that they received. Darshaniyos saying, the Medrash continues and says they were Darshaniyos. They were able to understand concepts. Because they said, if our father would have had a son, we wouldn't have spoken up. Tzidkani saying, they were righteous. Amazing thing this Medrash says. Listen to this carefully. It's unbelievable. That they only married someone who is appropriate for them. Tani Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. The youngest of them did not get married before she was 40 years old. They waited until an older age to get married. They waited until now. Aini, the Gemara, the Medrash asks, is that so? We have a general principle. Rav Chizda says that if a woman gets married before she's 20, so she'll have the ability to have children until she's 60. Bas Esrim, when she's already 20, when she gets married, Yoledis at Arbaim. So then she'll have the ability to conceive until the age of 40. Bas Arbaim, but if she gets married after 40, Shuv Eni Yoledes, she doesn't have the ability to have children anymore. So what's going on? These women waited until they were 40 to get married. But amazing thing, since they were righteous, so a miracle was performed for them, and they were able to have children despite the fact that they got married at an advanced age. Now, very interesting. What is the idea here? It seems strange. They waited all the way until now. They waited all the way until this time in order, excuse me as I turn on my AC. They waited all of this time in order to get married. Why? As we're going to see, because they weren't sure exactly what they were supposed to do. They weren't clear on what their spiritual heritage was. What was their spiritual tafkid in life? What was their purpose in life? And therefore they waited until now in order to get married. So what's going on here? That's a righteousness. That's a good thing to wait so long. It sounds like they're depending on an ace. They're depending on a miracle. They're going to be able to have children like Yocheved, who had children at an advanced age. He was 130. Who says that miracle will be performed for them. So he says something amazing, Reb Chaim Friedlander. He tells us a general principle. It has to do both with the daughters of Tzelafchad. It has to do with the idea of inheritance. It also has to do with the idea of yibum, the concept of the brother marrying his dead brother's wife if they don't have any children. And that general principle is that when it came to the inheritance, when it comes to the inheritance of the land of Israel, and we've spoken about this in years past, in other podcasts, when it comes to the idea of inheritance, so we're speaking about a spiritual inheritance. As we find by Yaakov Avinu, when it came to giving the brachas to his sons, and Moshe Rabbeinu was really a continuation of those brachas, as we find at the end of Sefer Devarim. when Yaakov Avinu gives the blessings to his sons, he's showing them each their spiritual tafkid, their purpose in life, who they are, what is the essence of what their purpose is, and how they're supposed to manifest godliness in the world. So Moshe Rabbeinu is giving a spiritual inheritance. He's giving a piece of land. A piece of land is not just a piece of land. For example, Zvulun, we say about him, Zvulun l'chayf yam yishkoin. Part of his spiritual task is to be involved in business in order to be able to support his brother Yisachar, who's sitting and learning, right? So, but he has to dwell on the chof by the shore of the sea, so that he can be involved in commerce. So, each person, the place where he lives, is a significant factor in his being able to manifest his purpose. Now, so the inheritance, amazing idea. Amazing idea. I'm so lit up by this amazing idea. The spiritual inheritance of the person represents his purpose. Why does a son get the physical inheritance of his father? And the reason is, says Reb Chaim Friedlander, because Brakar de Avua, there's a concept within the Torah that the son is a continuation, is the legs, so to speak, of the father. The spiritual heir of the father is the child, and therefore, since the tools that the father needed in order to manifest his purpose in life were these tools, he has this piece of land, he has this particular location, all these things, so the child continues that. And therefore, since the child is continuing that, he inherits the piece of land that the father had. And it's true on an individual level, and it's true on a tribal level between each of the tribes of the Jewish people, and it needs to remain within the tribe. And it's true on a vaster level, on a national level as well. We as the Jewish people have a certain spiritual purpose in the world, and we continue that through our inheritance, through living in the land of Israel. Our spiritual purpose is fulfilled to the best of our ability within the land of Israel. Eretz Yisrael is that place where we fulfill that. So that's for the concept of inheritance, and it's also true when it comes to Yibum. What is the idea of Yibum? The idea of Yibum is, as the Torah states, that the brother is going to give seed to his dead brother. He's going to take the wife of his dead brother, he's going to marry her, which is the only time that such a thing is permitted, and the child that he's going to have is going to be named after his brother, the brother who died. So what happens? The spiritual heir of his brother becomes that child. So there's a transference, and really because they're brothers, so they both share the spiritual purpose of their father. So they're all in the same line, they're all related. So that's being continued here. So, but that was the essence of what the Benos Tzelafchad were looking for. They were looking to manifest. They were asking, do we continue? How does it work? They waited. It says Reb Chaim Friedlander, an amazing thing. Why did they wait for 40 years? Why were they semech on an ace? Why did they wait for this miracle to happen, that they should be able to have children even though they married after they were 40? And he explains an amazing thing. He says that they weren't sure what their purpose was. They weren't sure what their spiritual inheritance was. Ordinarily, of course, each woman has her own spiritual purpose in life, which is unique to her. But because every woman who gets married, she becomes a unit with her husband, a very great part of her purpose, the way that she manifests her lot in life or her spiritual purpose in life, is by supporting her husband and helping him be able to manifest his purpose in life. That's a great portion of her purpose. So, but the question for them was, how do we view our purpose? Do we look at it as we are to find husbands, and then based on our husbands, we support them in their spiritual purpose? Or do we look at ourselves mainly as children of our father? And since our father had a certain spiritual purpose to manifest, he had no sons to continue that manifestation, so we are the ones who are meant to take it over. That was their question, and that's why they waited. Amazing thing. So they had a spiritual question, and they waited for their spiritual answer. 40 years, until it was time to give out the inheritance, which really meant it was time for people to find out what was their true spiritual purpose in life. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was giving people at that time. And so they waited till this point, and at the point when it became clear that it was not clear, at the point that it became clear that it was not clear, they stood up and they said, we want to know what's supposed to be done. We want to know how are we supposed to manifest our spiritual purpose, as a continuation of our father or as a support to our future husbands. And to this, Moshe Rabbeinu really told them both are true. Both are true. You need to indeed be a continuation. Hashem confirmed that they were correct. You need to indeed, since your father has no sons, you need to be a continuation of your father's spiritual legacy. And you need to make sure, as the tribe requested, that you marry within the tribe. And so that your husbands will be people, indeed, who are continuations of the same spiritual legacy of your father. And this way, that spiritual legacy will continue within the tribe, within your family, and you will receive that piece of land, which represents the spiritual purpose, which is yours and your families. Now, there's one more interesting point that Reb Chaim Friedlander speaks about, and that is the way that Chazal set up this idea, the way that they set up the whole concept of this, the fact that we have the daughters of Tzelafchad revealing a concept in the Torah, which Moshe Rabbeinu didn't merit to reveal. Similar, as he points out, something that we find in regards to Pesach Sheni. We find that there were people who were Tameim L'Nefesh Adam. They were impure. They were unable to bring the Korban Pesach, the special Passover offering. Why? Because they had come in contact with the dead. And they said, why should we lose out? Why should we not be able to bring our Korban? Why should we not be able to bring our sacrifice? And Moshe Rabbeinu turned to God, and God responded and said, indeed, a month later, there's going to be a concept called Pesach Sheni. There's going to be a makeup for someone who wasn't able to bring that Korban the first time, in its correct time. They'll be able to bring it the following month on what's called Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. But that halacha was nisayrer. It was awakened. It was brought down because of a spiritual request, because of a she'ifa, of a desire. Very interesting. It's very much parallels what was going on here. The daughters of Tzelafchad have a spiritual desire. They're not just asking, we want to make sure that we have our piece of land, our father, we deserve it. No, it was a spiritual request. We want to make sure that the spiritual purpose of our father is not lost. That's what they wanted. They wanted to do Hashem's will. They cared about God's will. So too, when they came to the people who requested that there be an opportunity, how are we going to be able to bring the Korban Pesach? They also, through that she'ifa, through that desire, they merited to have something revealed through them because they wanted God's will, and God's will was indeed revealed because of them. But there's something small that's happening here which we need to understand, as Chaim Friedlander points out, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, ordinarily, all the other halachas, all the other laws, all the other ideas, Moses himself reveals. But here, it's not revealed through him. In fact, he doesn't know the answer. He has to go to God, and God has to tell him they are correct. So what's the idea here? What's the basis of this? What's the foundation of this? Amazing thing. He brings a medrash. I'm not going to read it inside, but the medrash tells us that there were two people, King David, Moshe Rabbeinu, both of whom there was something very fine, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, is very exacting when it comes to the tzaddikim, when it comes to righteous people. Hashem is very careful. Hashem wants them to be perfected to the nth degree, to the highest level. So if there's a little thing that they've done wrong, so Hashem gives them an opportunity to fix that. David HaMelech gives a whole example that has to do with the Aron, with the Ark, etc. Not going to get into it. Moshe Rabbeinu, there was something that he said at the beginning of the 40 years, very interesting. He said something which he didn't mean it in a way of hisnasis, of gaiva, of ego, in an egotistical way. We know Moshe Rabbeinu was the Ana Mikol Adam. He was the most humble of all people. But Moshe Rabbeinu said something which, on his level, could have been perceived as a negative thing. What did he say? Moshe Rabbeinu said, he said, I'm having trouble finding it here, but I'll just tell you what it says. Outside, Moshe Rabbeinu said at the beginning, he said that he set up a whole series of courts, and he said that the problem, first you bring it to this group. If they don't understand it, bring it to the next group, the higher level court, higher level, higher. And if something is too difficult for anybody else, you'll bring it to me, and I'll answer the questions. So Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, is the one who receives his Torah directly from God, and therefore he has the authority to say, I'm going to be the final authority. But in saying that, it could have been misconstrued as if he was saying, I'm the one who's got all of the answers. Anything that's too tough for anybody else, I have all the answers. It wasn't that he did it out of gaiva, it wasn't done out of pride, but it could have been misconstrued that way. And as Reb Chaim Friedlander explains, someone who's a tzaddik, a person who's righteous, has to be so careful that he not even say something which can be misconstrued. So as a result of the fact that he said this thing that whatever is too hard, I'll have the answer for, so when it came to this question, he didn't have the answer. As it's very interesting because the way Chazal give us the picture and describe the story, describe this occurrence, is first they came, indeed, the Banot Tzelafchad, first they came to the lower level court, then to a higher level, and then a higher level, and then a higher level, until finally they got to Moshe, and Moshe said, I don't know the answer, and he brought it to Hashem, he brought it to God, and God himself gave the answer. So it was a tikkun, says Reb Chaim Friedlander, says the Medrash, it was a tikkun, it was a rectification of the fact that Moshe had said something which could have sounded like hisnasus, could have sounded like a prideful statement, that he has all the answers. Hashem had to show him, be careful, you got to watch out even for such a statement. And what's interesting, and this is where it comes to the thoughts that I have about what Reb Chaim Friedlander is saying, what's interesting is that it took all of these years for Moshe Rabbeinu to figure out, to rectify the mistake he had made 40 years earlier. The whole comment that he made about setting up these courts, etc., and then finally it will come to me, that was something which he had said at the beginning of the 40 years. And only now, at the end of the 40 years, is it being rectified. It's very interesting. What's the concept? And also with these women, why did they wait so long to try to figure it out? What happened here? They waited all the way until the end, when Moshe Rabbeinu speaks about this concept of Yibum, and he's giving out the Nachal, he's giving out the inheritance, talking about the inheritance. Why did they wait so long? What's the idea? What's the depth of it? And the thought that came to me, the concept I think that's being relayed here, the reason is because it's teaching us a lesson in patience. A person, each and every one of us has a desire. I know I have a desire, and I'm sure many of you do as well, to try to do Hashem's will, to try to perform my purpose in life, to try to fulfill that which Hashem has put me in this earth to be, to try to be who I'm supposed to be. And it can be frustrating. I want to do it already. I want to fulfill my purpose. I want to get to that point where it feels like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Not just that, I'm reaching a level of perfection. I'm reaching perfection in my purpose. And here we have an amazing thing. We have a few different angles of it. One angle of it is that we see that Moshe Rabbeinu had to wait from the beginning. He made a mistake 40 years ago, and it's fixed 40 years later. There's a lot of patience that's needed for a person in order to get to that perfection. And amazingly also, it was something that Hashem was megal. Hashem brought the opportunity for him to fix this problem. The Banot Tzelafchad as well, even more challenging. They didn't know who they were. They didn't know what their purpose was. They didn't know how to see themselves, who to relate to. Am I going to be the support of my husband? Am I going to be the child of my father? Where's my spiritual legacy? They didn't know. They waited 40 years to find out. And when they finally found out, Hashem showed them, it's not too late. It's not too late. You can still have children. You can still have a spiritual legacy. You might have to wait a while, but it's going to happen. Hashem will guarantee. If you're in this earth and you're trying to do Hashem's will, as the Banot Tzelafchad were, and certainly as Moshe Rabbeinu was, you're going to have the opportunity to fulfill that will. Hashem is going to get you there. It seems like I'm never going to get there. Hashem will get you there. And you might wait a long time. Hashem will fill up the time. Hashem will take care of, make up for lost time. And another even deeper idea is that the purpose that a person has, that I have, that each and every individual has, may not be or will not be completed by me. I can't complete it. I need my children to continue that legacy. It's an ongoing mission. It's an ongoing fulfillment that needs to be done, manifesting Hashem in the world. It's never done. It's never completed. My children continue that. B'nai Tzelafchad continue that. It's something that needs to take place throughout our time on this earth. But not just throughout our time on this earth, throughout the time of our children on this earth, and our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. that legacy, that spiritual legacy, is something which continues and is completed. Hashem is in charge of completing it. Our job is to try our best, to search for God's will, to try to complete it to the best of our ability, but also to have the patience to recognize that we don't always know when it's going to be completed. And it may not even be completed in our lifetime. But our job is to do our best to do what we're supposed to do. Hashem will give us that opportunity. Maybe it may take a long time. But Hashem will give us the opportunity, and Hashem will give opportunities for our children to continue our legacy and to be able to manifest the purpose that Hashem has for each and every one of them. I bless you. Please bless me. Hashem should help us to recognize our purpose, to recognize that which we are supposed to manifest in the world, the godliness we're supposed to bring into the world. Hashem should help us to indeed do that, to recognize it, to do it, to be able to bequeath that inheritance, that spiritual inheritance, to our children. And they should continue that which we begin. Hashem should help us to have the patience to be able to see the completion of our missions in life, Ad Mea B'Esrim, until 120 years. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.